There are two main orientations toward life. One is positive and one is negative. The positive orientation says yes to life. It's an orientation toward value. It says life is good, life is worth living, and has an interest in what is good for oneself, such as in health and fitness, character and virtue, wisdom and truth, or love and friendship. And the negative orientation focuses on suffering, on loss, on threats, on enemies, on frustration or dissatisfaction. And there are three main types of negative orientation. One is an orientation toward foes. Here there's a focus on competition, on resistance, on struggle, on hostility, and on overcoming and defeating evil. Another type of negative orientation is toward danger. And here there's a focus on flight, on fear, on cowardice, on anxiety, on sycophancy, collaboration, and submission, and on remaining safe from harm. And note here there are a couple different ways of remaining safe from harm. One is to escape the danger altogether, such as through flight or cowardice. And the other is to placate whoever is posing a threat to you, such as through sycophancy or collaboration. This is in the sense that the French collaborated with the Nazis during World War II, for example, that kind of collaboration. Or through submission to who's threatening you. You might join his side and work for him in the hope that he will favor you instead of hurting you. Now we may ask, which orientation is best? Which orientation is most characteristic of happy people? Is it an orientation toward value, toward foes, toward danger, or toward loss? And it seems to be that it's an orientation toward value. When you focus on value, you're focusing on what it actually is about life that is enjoyable. What is it that makes life worth living? And it's when you focus on these things that you're happiest. When you're focusing on the negative things, you're less likely to be happy. So it's a positive orientation, the orientation on value, that is going to be most characteristic of happy people. We may also ask, which orientation is most typical of unhappy people? And here it seems to be an orientation toward loss. When you focus on loss, you're focusing on what you're missing in life. There's a sense that you need certain things in life to be happy, and you just don't have those. And so you're not going to be as happy as other people. Whereas with danger and foes, you have a sense that there is something in life worth protecting. And so you may feel happier. They may be under threat, but at least you have them in your life. Now comparing the orientation toward foes to the orientation toward danger, we may ask, which is more typical of happy people? And it seems to me that it's the orientation toward foes that is more typical of happy people than the orientation toward danger. And one reason for this is that when you're focused toward your foes, you have a greater hope of overcoming the threats that are in your life. Foes are something you can overcome. Dangers are simply something you must escape. So here there's a sense of confronting what's threatening you, as opposed to here there's just a sense of escaping it. Also, when you confront what's threatening you, you may feel better about yourself. And here you may, if you're just focusing on what's threatening you, you may feel more like a coward. And so when you feel better about yourself, you're more likely to feel happy than when you don't feel so good about yourself. So between the hope of overcoming what's threatening your life and the sense of feeling better about yourself by actively doing something to improve your life, you're more likely to feel better if you're focusing on foes than if you're focusing simply on danger. Okay, with all of this in mind, we may rank the orientations from happiest to unhappiest. The happiest is an orientation toward value. And below that we have an orientation toward foes. And below that we have an orientation toward danger. And at the unhappiest we have an orientation toward loss. And so we may ask, is the lesson here to don't worry, be happy, as Bobby McFerrin says and that song he's famous for? No, not quite. It's not as simple as just choosing one orientation and ignoring the others. Because sometimes shit happens. Sometimes loved ones die, bringing us down to an orientation toward loss. Sometimes danger threatens us, which focuses our orientation towards danger. Sometimes injustice happens, which may focus our orientation toward foes, toward enemies, toward people we need to defeat. And sometimes we may just have to deal with the negativity of other people. And so there are these various things in life which are routinely bringing us down. Does this mean that we're just victims of circumstance? That our happiness or unhappiness all depends on the draw of the cards? All depends on what fortune or misfortune we may have in life? And no, we're not just victims of circumstance. It's not just a matter of fortune, whether we can be happy or sad. When we get knocked down by the various things that happen in life, we have a choice. We can sink or we can swim. Here's a parody of Spider-Man, the megalomaniacal Spider-Man. He looks very defeated by the various things that have knocked him down in life. And over here we have Barbara Gordon, previously known as Batgirl. She was shot in the back by the Joker, became a cripple, but even though she couldn't be Batgirl anymore, she became a superhero known as Oracle, who worked through computers to fight crime and helped organize the birds of prey. So here Barbara Gordon didn't let herself get knocked down. Well, she picked herself back up when she got knocked back down. Okay, now snakes and ladders illustrates the idea that sometimes we get knocked down in life. Like, for example, this fellow's walking along at 87 and he gets to the tip of the snake and comes down it, and here he lands flat on his face at 24. And when we get knocked down in life, what we need to do is climb back up ladders. We need ladders we can use to bring ourselves back up. And what can we use for ladders? Well, that's what I want to focus on in this video. What kind of ladders we can use when we get knocked down by life to bring us back up to a sense of happiness. Well, here's one rung of the ladder. It's going from an orientation toward loss to an orientation toward danger. When you're at an orientation toward loss, you have a sense that all is lost, all is hopeless. But when you're at an orientation toward danger, you have the sense that there is something left to lose, that there is something worth safeguarding. And so when you're focused on danger, you're not entirely hopeless. So you can gain a sense of hope. You can gain a sense that there is something in your life that is worth protecting when you move from an orientation toward loss to an orientation toward danger. Another rung of this ladder is to go from an orientation toward danger to an orientation toward foes. When you're focused on danger, you have the sense that life is threatening and dangerous. But when you focus on foes, you have a sense that danger can be faced, threats overcome. And so you can bring yourself up by focusing on foes rather than on danger. And one more rung of the ladder is to go from an orientation toward foes to an orientation toward value. When you're at an orientation toward foes, you have a sense that life is endless struggle. But when you can move up to an orientation toward value, you have a sense that life is to be enjoyed. And so if you can bring yourself up to an orientation toward foes, from there you can further bring yourself up to an orientation toward value, to focus on what it is in your life that makes your life worth living. And then it's much easier to be happy. What I've been describing here is based on the emotional tone scale, which comes from Scientology, but I've been using it very differently than I believe Scientologists do. Here we have grief, which corresponds with loss, and we have fear, which corresponds with orientation toward danger. Hostility here corresponds with an orientation toward foes, and enthusiasm corresponds with an orientation toward value. And the way I use this is as a ladder to pick myself up when I get knocked down. Now, there are other ways to use this. One is to just pigeonhole people, to stereotype people, just say some people get stuck at certain levels and you want to avoid those people and perhaps discriminate against them. And that, I believe, is how L. Ron Hubbard would like to use it, maybe how Scientology uses it. And that's not the right way to be using this. The right way is to use this as a tool for resiliency, to introspect into your own feelings and get a sense of where you are on this ladder, and then start pulling yourself up by focusing your attention on the emotional tone that is above wherever you are at. I do not believe that Scientology tech is of any use in determining where you are on the tone scale. If it is even used for that purpose, I don't know, because I'm not a Scientologist. And I don't believe you can just rely on other people to tell you where you are on this scale. You have to use introspection. You have to think for yourself and use this as your own personal introspective tool to pick yourself up. There's no magic bullet here that's going to help you pick yourself up. You can't rely on others to do it for you. But by understanding the tone scale, you can move yourself along it. So when you get knocked down by life, when things cause you pain, for example, or things may cause you some sense of grief or make you feel apathy, here's grief, here's apathy, you can pull yourself back up. You have a ladder to climb back up. You have rungs of a ladder. And note that there are more rungs here than what I've been previously describing. First of all, there are restrained and expressed forms of each of these four main tones. There's restrained and expressed grief, restrained and expressed fear, restrained and expressed hostility, and restrained and expressed enthusiasm. And in each case, the expressed form is higher up the scale than the restrained form. And if you're at the restrained form, you can first move yourself up to the expressed form. And from there, you can move yourself up to the main tone that's above it, and so on. And so, move yourself up all along the ladder. And briefly, we have apathy, which is restrained grief. It's a sense of loss where you're not even focusing on your emotions. And grief, here you have acknowledgement of your loss. You're feeling sad, things are really bad, but at least you're expressing your sorrow. And that's better than refusing to express it. At fear, we have propitiation, which is a way of placating your foes, placating people who may be threatening you so that they will not hurt you. And sympathy is a way also of placating them, but of befriending your foes in a sense, but by focusing on their problems. So they think you're some kind of sympathetic ally and they won't want to hurt you. At fear, you're focused on escaping what is threatening you. At covert hostility, you're focused on hiding your hostility so that people you feel hostility towards will not hurt you. So there's a combination here of fear and hostility. And no sympathy is slightly above covert hostility because that's focusing on, well, you have a sense of hostility, but you're not hiding it, but you're not expressing it either. It's just there. With anger, you're beginning to actively express your hostility. But this is more a response to what's bothering you rather than awareness of it. With pain, you're focusing on the awareness of what it is that's bothering you. So at pain, you're more aware of the problem than you are at anger. At antagonism, you are directly focusing on what it is that's bothering you. You're confronting perhaps foes who are trying to bring you down, or you're dealing with a problem that has to be dealt with. At boredom, you're sort of at a limbo between hostility and enthusiasm. You're not really excited all that much, but things aren't bringing you down either. At interest, you're taking an interest in things that have value in your life, the things that can make you happy. And at enthusiasm, you're actively focused on enjoying your life. And so here we have a ladder to bring yourself up when you get knocked down. And let me also add that these numbers are essentially meaningless. They may have an ordinal value. That is, the lower numbers are lower down on the scale, but they don't really mean anything. Maybe Scientology makes some use of them. I do not. This doesn't mean that enthusiasm is 4 times better than fear, or that these can be measured by any instruments in any way. I'm sure they cannot. Okay, so bear in mind that you should not be using Scientology to use the emotional tone scale. You should not be relying on Scientology tech. You should not be relying on other people to tell you where you are on the tone scale. You should be relying on your own introspection to know where you are on this. So rely on that, and you may use this in a productive way to pick yourself up when you get knocked down in life. And if you want to know more about the emotional tone scale, I have made another video on that, and you can go take a look at that. Thank you for watching.